They laughed at her for living alone. Not out loud, not always, but in small glances, in quiet jokes, in the way people crossed the street when they saw her coming. In the Old West, a woman without family was a mystery, and mystery made people uncomfortable. She lived in a narrow cabin near the ridge where the wind never rested and the nights felt endless. No husband, no visitors, no explanations. They thought they knew her story. They were wrong. And the day a wealthy mountain man noticed her, everything began to change.
Before this story continues, take a moment to settle in. These are the kind of stories meant to be heard slowly. If you believe in second chances, quiet strength, and unexpected love, subscribe to Rescued by the Ridge. Now, let's go back to the mountains. Her name was Martha Caldwell, and she lived where the road gave up. Just beyond the last fence of the settlement, past the trees bent by constant wind, stood her cabin. Small, weathered, steady, like the woman inside it. People noticed her because she did not belong to anyone. In that town, everyone belonged to something, a family, a name, a past that made sense. Martha had none of that, at least not that anyone could see. Each morning she walked into town with her shoulders straight and her eyes forward. She bought what she needed, flour, salt, a little coffee when she could afford it. She spoke politely, briefly, then she left. No lingering, no gossip. That alone made her strange. Some said she was proud, others said she was broken. A few said she was hiding something, but no one ever asked her directly. It was easier to whisper than to listen. Children stared, women lowered their voices, men watched her pass, then shook their heads. A woman shouldn't live alone, someone once muttered behind her. Martha heard it. She always heard it, but she never turned around. Her cabin sat near the ridge for a reason. From there she could see the valley stretch wide and open, no walls, no eyes, just land and sky and silence. Silence was safer. At night, when the wind pressed against the boards and the cold crept through every crack, she kept a small fire going and mended what she could. A sleeve, a tear in a blanket, a broken memory she refused to touch. Loneliness did not frighten her anymore. What frightened her was hope. Hope asked questions, hope made promises, and promises had once left her with nothing but that cabin and the ridge beyond it. So she lived quietly, carefully, alone. Until one afternoon, as she stepped into town like she always did, she noticed something different. A wagon she had never seen before, strong horses, clean gear, and a man standing beside it, calm and still, watching the town as if he were measuring it. And then, for just a moment, his eyes found hers, and Martha felt something shift inside her chest, sharp and unexpected, like the first crack of ice before it breaks. She looked away, but she did not stop thinking about him, and she did not know that this was the last ordinary day she would ever live. That night, Martha did not sleep well. The wind moved through the trees like a low warning, and the fire burned down faster than she expected. She lay still on her narrow bed, staring at the dark beams above her, seeing that stranger's face every time she closed her eyes. It unsettled her, not because he looked dangerous, but because he looked calm. Calm had always meant change. She had learned long ago that a quiet life did not begin with comfort. It began with loss. Years earlier, she had come west with hope folded neatly in her hands, a promise, a future spoken with confidence.
She had believed in it then, believed in shared meals, shared work, and shared names. She believed that belonging would keep her safe. It did not. When that promise faded, it did so slowly. Words turned thin, smiles stopped reaching the eyes. Then, one morning, she woke to an empty space beside her and a silence that felt final. No note, no explanation, just absence. She did not cry in front of anyone. She packed what she could carry. She left before the town could ask questions she was not ready to answer. The ridge had offered no comfort, only honesty. Wind that never lied, nights that demanded strength, days that required work. She built her life there piece by piece, not because she wanted to be alone, but because she needed to remember who she was without someone else deciding it for her. Living alone meant no one could leave her again. In the settlement, people mistook her distance for coldness. They did not see how carefully she chose her steps, how she fixed broken hinges instead of broken hearts, how she learned to trust her own hands more than anyone's words. The laughter followed her anyway. That morning, as she stepped outside, frost clung to the ground, and the sky looked pale and tired. She wrapped her shawl tighter and told herself she would forget the man by the wagon. Men passed through all the time, they always did. But when she reached the edge of town, she saw him again. Not watching her this time, watching the mountains. He stood apart from the others, listening more than speaking, and something about that made her pause, just for a breath, just long enough to feel that old instinct stir. The one that warned her when to run, and the one that whispered when something mattered. She turned toward the road home, her steps steady, her face unreadable. She did not know his name, she did not know why he had come, but she felt it deep in her bones. The quiet she had built was about to be tested.
The quiet did not break all at once. It shifted. Martha felt it before she understood it, like a change in weather that had not yet reached the skin. She followed the narrow path back toward the ridge, but her thoughts stayed behind in town, circling the stranger she refused to name. By the next morning, everyone was talking. A man of means had come down from the higher passes. A mountain man, they said, but not the kind who drifted through with empty pockets and loud stories. This one owned land, traded fairly, paid in full. He did not brag, he did not hurry. That alone made people uneasy. Martha heard the talk as she passed the general store. She did not slow her step, she never did, but the words reached her anyway. He's staying a while. Not from around here. Has money, they say. She told herself it had nothing to do with her. Men like that did not notice women like her. Not the ones without family, without laughter trailing behind them. Still, when she reached the edge of town, she saw him again. He stood near the hitching post, sleeves rolled, hands steady as he checked his gear. He moved with purpose, no wasted motion, no need to impress. He looked up as if he sensed her before he saw her. Their eyes met. This time he did not look away. There was no hunger in his gaze, no judgment, just attention, careful and calm, like someone taking in a landscape before crossing it. Martha felt her breath catch, not because she wanted him to speak, but because part of her feared he might. She nodded once, out of habit, out of politeness. Then she turned toward the road. Behind her, the town continued to murmur. Speculation grew like weeds. Some spoke of opportunity, others of risk. Women smoothed their hair when he passed. Men straightened their shoulders. The stranger noticed none of it. Instead, his eyes followed the lone figure walking away from the settlement, the woman who did not look back, the one who carried herself like someone who had already lost and survived. He asked no questions.
yet. But later that day he spoke her name for the first time. He learned it not from her, but from someone else, spoke it quietly, as if testing how it sounded in the open air. Martha Caldwell. The wind carried that name up toward the ridge, though she did not hear it. What she did feel was the weight of being seen, and for the first time in years she wondered if solitude was something she had chosen, or something she had simply learned to accept. Far below, the stranger watched the path she had taken, then turned back toward the town with a thoughtful expression. The mountains had changed him before, and now so had she.
The stranger did not ask about Martha right away. That alone surprised people. Men like him usually wanted stories, explanations, warnings, and when he finally did ask, it was not the way they expected. "What do you know of the woman by the ridge?" he said, voice calm, eyes steady. The room shifted. Someone laughed under their breath. Another shook their head. "She keeps to herself," a man said, "always has." "Too quiet," a woman added, "not natural." "She lives alone," someone else said, as if that explained everything. The stranger listened. He did not interrupt. He did not agree. "And is that all?" he asked. The answers grew thinner after that. No crimes, no cruelty, just discomfort. The kind that came from not understanding someone who refused to explain herself. That night, he walked the edge of town alone. He watched which lights stayed on late. He noticed which doors stayed closed, and he saw, far above, a single lantern glowing near the ridge, steady, unmoving, like a promise kept to oneself. The next morning, he crossed paths with Martha near the stream. She was gathering water, her movements practiced and efficient. She noticed him, too late to avoid him, and for a moment neither spoke. "Good morning," he said. His voice was respectful, not familiar, not distant. She nodded. "Morning." He stepped aside to give her room, not crowding her, not rushing her. Small things, but she noticed them. "You live up there," he said, gesturing gently toward the ridge. "Yes." No apology, no explanation. He studied the path she took, the incline, the distance. "That's a long walk," he said. "I'm used to it." Something about that answer made him smile, not wide, not obvious, just enough. People watched from a distance, they always did, waiting for her to bristle, for him to press. Neither did. They spoke of the weather, of the coming cold, of nothing important, and somehow that made it important. When she finished, she lifted her bucket and turned to go. "Miss Caldwell," he said. She paused. "My name is Samuel Hartman." She looked at him then, really looked, noticed the lines of work in his hands, the calm weight of him. "Martha," she said, just that. He did not ask more. As she walked away, she felt eyes on her back, the town's and his. Later that day, whispers returned sharper than before. "He's been warned. She'll bring trouble. Some people don't change." But Samuel Hartman had already decided something. A woman who survived alone in the mountains was not someone to fear. She was someone worth knowing. And Martha, standing at her cabin door as night fell, sensed it. The silence around her no longer felt empty. It felt expectant. The night passed slowly. Martha stood at her cabin door longer than usual, lantern in hand, listening to the wind as it moved across the ridge. Expectation settled in her chest like a weight she did not know how to set down. By morning, the town felt different. Not louder, not quieter, just alert. Samuel Hartman did not come looking for her right away. That, too, was unexpected. Instead, he went about his business, trading, speaking with landholders, listening more than talking. Martha told herself that was the end of it. Then, near midday, she saw him walking the path toward the ridge. Her first instinct was to retreat inside. Old habits moved quickly. But he did not hurry.
He stopped a respectful distance from her cabin and waited. "Martha," he called, voice steady but not loud. She stepped outside. "Yes?" "I hope I'm not intruding." "You're not," she said. The truth surprised her. He glanced at the cabin, the mended boards, the stacked firewood. He saw effort there, care. "I won't take much of your time," he said, "but I wanted to speak with you away from town." That made her cautious. Silence stretched between them. He met her eyes. "I've heard what people say. I don't put much weight in it." She waited. She had learned not to fill quiet with excuses. "You live well," he said instead, "on your own terms." A statement, not a question. "Yes." He took a breath, as if choosing his words carefully. "I came west to build something lasting. Land, a home, not noise, not attention." She felt her chest tighten. "I don't believe a person should face life without choice," he went on, "and I wondered if you ever wished for something different." There it was. Not pity, not rescue, not a demand, a question no one had ever asked her. Martha looked past him, toward the valley below, toward the town that had never known her, yet felt so certain about her. "I don't know how to live halfway," she said finally. "I won't be someone's mistake." Samuel nodded. "Nor would I ask you to be." He held her gaze, steady and unflinching. "I'm asking if you would consider a partnership built on respect, shared work, shared ground." The words settled between them, heavy with possibility. Her heart pounded. Fear rose quickly, sharp and familiar. This was how it started before. Promises spoken calmly, futures offered gently. She stepped back. "I need time," she said. Samuel did not argue. He did not look disappointed. "Take it," he replied. "I'll be here." As he turned and walked back down the path, Martha closed her eyes. The life she had built alone stood behind her, and ahead, a door she had never allowed herself to open. For the first time in years, the ridge felt too quiet.
The ridge did not give Martha answers. It only gave her time. She spent the next days moving through her routines with care, chopping wood, mending seams, heating water at dusk. The work steadied her hands, but her thoughts wandered where she did not want them to go, down the mountain. Samuel Hartman kept his distance, just as he promised. He did not return to her cabin. He did not send messages through others. That restraint spoke louder than any persuasion. The town noticed anyway. People began watching the ridge more than they ever had before. Heads turned when Martha passed. Conversations paused. Assumptions grew bold. She's caught his attention. Men like that don't stay long. She'll ruin him. Martha heard it all. She always did. Each word tested the quiet strength she had built. It was easier to be alone when no one expected anything from her. Now expectation followed her like a shadow. One afternoon she crossed paths with Samuel near the edge of town. Not planned, not avoided, just two people moving through the same space. He tipped his hat in greeting. She returned it with a nod. Nothing more. Still, the looks came fast, curious, sharp, measuring. That night, Martha stood at her window and watched lanterns flicker below. The town felt closer than it ever had, too close. Fear crept in slowly, not of Samuel, of herself, of the part of her that imagined mornings not spent alone, evenings shared in quiet, work done side by side. Those thoughts unsettled her more than gossip ever could. She remembered what it felt like to believe once, to trust words spoken with confidence, to wake one morning and realize the ground beneath her had shifted. The ridge had saved her then.
Could it save her again? Below, Samuel faced his own watching eyes. Men questioned his intentions. Women studied him carefully. He answered politely, briefly. He did not explain himself. He did not withdraw either. Days passed. The space between him and Martha remained unchanged, and yet something invisible stretched tighter with each sunrise. On the fifth evening, as the sky darkened and the wind picked up, Martha made her choice. Not an answer, but a step. She took her shawl and walked down the path toward town, toward uncertainty, toward the life she had kept at a distance for so long. From across the street, Samuel saw her approaching. Their eyes met again, and this time neither of them looked away.
The moment stretched between them. The town faded into a low murmur, as if the mountains themselves had leaned closer to listen. Martha stopped a few steps away from Samuel, her hands folded tightly in front of her. "I thought I should speak," she said. "I'm glad you did," he replied. They walked together, not far, just beyond the edge of the main road, where the noise thinned and the air felt clearer. No one followed, though many watched. Martha stood still, eyes fixed on the ground. "There are things you should know," she said, "before you ask me again." Samuel waited. "I wasn't always alone," she continued. "I believed in something once. I trusted words. I trusted a future that wasn't mine to keep." Her voice stayed even, but her hands trembled. "When it ended, it took more than a person from me," she said. "It took my certainty, my sense of place." She lifted her eyes then, bracing for judgment. "I chose the ridge because it doesn't pretend," she went on. "It gives what it gives. It takes what it must. Living there taught me how to stand on my own." She paused. The hardest part waited. "I don't know how to belong anymore," she said quietly, "and I won't be pitied. I won't be rescued." Samuel nodded once. "I wouldn't offer either," he said. She searched his face for signs of disappointment, found none. "I lost someone too," he said after a moment. "Not in the same way, but enough to know that rebuilding is not weakness." He met her gaze fully. "I don't see a woman who failed," he said. "I see one who survived and chose herself." The words landed softly, then all at once. Martha felt her breath hitch, not in pain, in relief. No one had ever framed her story that way. She swallowed and looked toward the ridge, where her cabin stood against the darkening sky. "That life is still mine," she said. "I won't abandon it." Samuel followed her gaze. "I wouldn't ask you to," he replied. "I'm not asking you to leave who you are. I'm asking if you'd let me stand beside it." Silence returned, but it felt different now, lighter, honest. The wind picked up, tugging at Martha's shawl. She held it close, steadying herself. For the first time, the past loosened its grip. The town's whispers no longer mattered, only the truth spoken between them. She did not answer him that night, but as they parted, Martha realized something had already changed. She no longer felt alone when she turned toward the ridge, and Samuel, watching her walk away, knew the question he carried was no longer a risk. It was a promise waiting for its time. The days that followed were quiet in a way Martha had not known before. Not empty, not guarded, just open. She moved through her work with a steady rhythm, but her thoughts no longer circled the past. Instead, they lingered on small moments. Samuel's patience, his careful words, the way he never tried to rush what was not ready. Each morning she looked down toward the valley and wondered what it would mean to let someone share the weight she carried alone for so long. The ridge did not answer. It never did. On the fourth evening after they spoke, Samuel came up the path again.
He stopped where the ground leveled, the sky wide above them. "I won't stay long," he said. "I only wanted to know if you found clarity." Martha stood beside him, her hands calm now. "I've found honesty," she said, "and that's more than I expected." He waited. "I can't promise ease," she continued. "I don't know how to soften what life has shaped." "I'm not looking for ease," Samuel replied, "only truth." She looked at him then, really looked, not as a stranger, not as a possibility, but as a man who had shown her who he was without asking anything in return. "I won't live as someone's shadow," she said. "You wouldn't," he answered. "I won't be hidden," she said. "You won't be." The last fear lingered, the one she had not spoken aloud. "What if I fail again?" she asked. Samuel did not answer right away. "Then we stand and rebuild," he said, "together." The words settled deep. Together. Martha took a slow breath. The ridge stood behind her. The valley stretched before her. For years she had believed she had to choose one or the other. Now she saw she did not. "Yes," she said. The word felt small, but it carried the weight of a lifetime. Samuel's expression did not change much, just a quiet relief, a steady acceptance. That night the town did not yet know, but the mountains did. The wind moved gently through the trees, the stars burned clear, and for the first time Martha did not close her door against the dark. She sat by the fire and planned not an escape, but a future, one shaped by choice, one shaped by respect, one shaped by a strength she had always carried, now finally shared. Below, Samuel prepared his own home, knowing the path ahead would not be simple, but it would be honest, and that was enough. The ridge, once a refuge, was about to become something more. Change did not announce itself. It arrived quietly, the way truth often does. At first, the town noticed only small things. Martha walked the streets with the same steady pace, but she no longer looked through people. She looked ahead, unburdened. Samuel stood beside her sometimes, not always, never possessive, just present. The whispers shifted. They were softer now, less certain. People saw how Samuel listened to her, how he never spoke over her, how decisions were shared, not claimed. That unsettled old assumptions. A woman like her was not supposed to be chosen, yet she was. Martha did not change her habits to please anyone. She still lived on the ridge, still worked with her hands, still carried herself with quiet resolve. But something in the way she moved spoke of belonging without surrender. The laughter faded. In its place came pauses, nods, a few careful greetings. One afternoon, a woman from town stopped Martha near the store, hesitant, awkward. "You keep your place well," she said. "Must take strength." Martha met her eyes. "It does." No bitterness, no triumph, just truth. Men who once shook their heads now tipped them, not because Samuel stood nearby, but because Martha had never bent. Samuel noticed too, not with pride, with understanding. Respect could not be forced. It had to be earned by standing still while others learned. The ridge became a place people spoke of differently, not as isolation, but as independence, as intention. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Samuel walked with Martha along the edge of town. They spoke of plans, simple ones, shared labor, time. "People see what they want," Martha said. "And sometimes," Samuel replied, "they finally see what's been there all along." She smiled then, not wide, not showy, just real. The town never apologized. It didn't need to. Its silence was answer enough. Children waved now. Women asked questions. Men spoke plainly. Martha accepted it all without changing herself. The laughter had taught her what it meant to stand alone. Respect taught her what it meant to stand firm. As night settled, lanterns lit one by one below the ridge. Above them, her cabin light burned steady, no longer watched with suspicion, but with quiet regard. And for the first time, the town understood something it had missed from the beginning. A woman who chooses her life is never weak. She is simply ahead of her time.
The ridge no longer felt like a place to hide. It felt like home. Martha still woke before the sun, still stepped outside to feel the wind and watch the valley stretch awake below. But now there was another set of footsteps beside hers. Not every morning, not in haste, just when the day asked for it. Samuel never asked her to leave the ridge. Instead, they built outward from it. A larger table by the window, stronger beams in the roof, a second chair placed close to the fire, not across from it. Nothing grand, nothing hurried, every change made with intention. They worked side by side, some days in silence, some days with quiet conversation that needed no guarding. Trust grew slowly, the way strong things always do. The town adjusted. People came up the path now, not out of curiosity, but respect. They brought small offerings, a sack of grain, fresh cloth, kind words spoken without expectation. Martha accepted them with grace. She had not traded her strength for comfort. She had found someone who honored both. Evenings became her favorite time, the sky wide and open, the fire steady, Samuel reading by lamplight while she mended or planned the next season. No need to fill every moment. Presence was enough. One night, as the wind settled and the stars burned bright, Martha realized something that surprised her. She no longer measured her life by what she had lost. She measured it by what she had chosen. Samuel felt it too, the quiet certainty of belonging, not claimed, not demanded, shared. They were not a story told loudly. They were a life lived honestly. And that, in the end, was what made it lasting. Up on the ridge, where laughter once echoed in absence, warmth now filled the space between walls and hearts. She had not been rescued, she had been respected, and together they had built a family from patience, dignity, and quiet love.
If this story moved you, take a moment to show your support. Like this video so more people can find it. Share it with someone who believes in quiet strength and second chances. And if stories of the Old West, survival, and redemption speak to you, subscribe to Rescued by the Ridge. Let me know in the comments what part of Martha's journey stayed with you the most. You'll find more stories like this waiting in the playlist. Until next time, take care, and may peace find you wherever you are.